Hello everyone, my name is Josh and welcome to WHIMS. And today I'm going to give you my video on a character from Twin Peaks known as Special Agent Dale Cooper. And he is a detective, he's a member of the FBI in the Philadelphia set, and he goes to the small town of Twin Peaks to investigate the murder of Laura Palmer. And what his character basically is, when he's first introduced, he's introduced halfway through the episode, and this is a show that's an ensemble show, so a lot of other characters are getting introduced, but Agent Dale Cooper, who is one of the main characters of the show, he gets introduced halfway through the first episode, the pilot episode. So when he is introduced, he basically is driving in his car and he's talking on a recorder to a woman who he calls Diane, and he's talking about his journey up there. He's talking about, the gas that he got. He's talking about, the food that he got off at the nearest diner, the tuna fish sandwich with a cup of coffee and a sliced cherry pie, damn good food and things like that. And he's very interested and he's very excited about going to Twin Peaks. He's very excited about going to this small town, and he has such enthusiasm. And already out of the gate, David Lynch, in this one moment of introducing his main character, he's subverting a cliche, which is whenever you get an out-of-town detective, especially a member of the FBI, he has this very kind of hoity-toity, oh, I'm bigger than you are, sort of like a dick measuring contest, where they come in and say, this is our jurisdiction, that we're taking over this case, or whatever. They'll shove their, badges in their faces and saying, you're incompetent at this is our jurisdiction now, whatever. Or they're an alcoholic, or they basically, just say things like, oh, I really hate going to small towns, why do I have to do this assignment, why do they pick me for this assignment? And they're very miserable, very down to earth. But Agent Dale Cooper is very, very much hands-on, he's very enthusiastic, and he's 100% lovable. And I like the fact that when he's investigating the murder of Laura Palmer, there's a moment where he is investigating the corpse of Laura Palmer, and he lifts from underneath her fingernail a letter, and I think it's the letter R, if I remember correctly. And whilst he's there, he asks, do you know if there are any good diners round here? And it seems like a very weird thing to ask after the big questions, been asked, but at the same time, it feels very much in keeping with Agent Dale Cooper that he would ask that. And he even asks when he's on his way into the mortician's room to view the body, he says, Sheriff Harris Truman, do you know what those trees are that I saw driving past here? And he goes, Douglas firs, and he just has this moment where it's like, Douglas firs? I like that. And I really do think, or he goes, oh, that's great, that's wonderful. And I love that. I love the fact that he's so enthusiastic by knowing what type of tree he's driving past. And it's one of those details where I think not many filmmakers would do that, where they would have a character focus on a small detail of something like that. And it just really goes to show that David Lynch has a much more broader and much more drier sense of humour than a lot of other people realise. And his films are surreal, his films are strange, but what I really like about them is he rewards you. He rewards you with watching a film multiple times, watching a TV show multiple times, and every single time an episode ends, you want to go back and rewatch it, or you want to immediately watch the next episode to see how that ties back together. But in some way, whether it's one episode down the line, or 2 episodes, or even 3 or 10, 20 episodes down the line, however long the season is, eventually you'll get payoffs to those questions. Eventually you'll get the answers that you're looking for. It's just that you have to be patient, and that's something that David Lynch did in spades, and especially with Mark Frost. But I want to also say that Twin Peaks, when it first aired, it was kind of a bit of a game changer, because a lot of TV shows, especially TV shows that were crime orientated, like your Starsky and Hutch, your Cagney and Lacey, your Murder, She Wrote, or Diagnosis Murders, those are the ones that just really jump out at me. Those shows were pretty much focused on whenever a murder mystery or whenever a crime occurred, it would always be wrapped up within the 30 minutes in which the show's on air. Like within that episode, whenever a crime is committed, that crime is solved and the evil is put away by the end of the episode. But The only exception would be was when there'd be a two-parter. Like they would always stretch it to a two-parter if they needed to, in which case they'll have a cliffhanger at the end of the first episode, so that when you get right back into it, you're right back into the thick of the crime and the mystery, and then it will eventually get solved within that part, or as a bit of a denouement kind of thing, where it sort of like wraps it up and gives you all the answers, gives you all the closure that you need, and even small plots and silly plots get wrapped up. But in Twin Peaks, that doesn't happen. A good portion of the time, you are just waiting. But what's really good about this is that David Lynch and Mark Frost really knew that you really needed to have good characters and a unique setting and a unique series of archetypes in order to get invested in that. Because if you're filled to the brim of cliches, you're kind of immediately going to be turned off because you're thinking, is there anything original going to be established here? And to a certain degree, one of the things that really saved this show was Agent Dale Cooper, because he was so unique and he was so different from a lot of the detectives that were in a lot of crime shows up until that point, especially the out-of-town FBI detective character who would just come in and sort of shove their badge in, the sheriff's face and saying this is our jurisdiction now and things like that. The arsehole, FBI agents in Die Hard kind of thing. Like those characters who are very cocky and very cowboy-esque. But Agent Dale Cooper isn't like that. He's very down to earth. He's very kind of kind and very kind of, humble. But he does have little pet peeves. Like he hates being, woken at ungodly hours, like a lot of us do. But he also likes, the idea that, he can go to these places like the R&R Diner and order a cherry pie or get some donuts or anything like that. And I really love that. And I love the fact that he keeps talking to Diane through the recorder. It's like a wonderful thing. And he doesn't need to. He doesn't need to include the detail that, there's a Danish convention in town and they're right above me. They're on the floor right above me and they're waking me up all night with their noise. And he literally just shoves the, recorder up at the ceiling to kind of prove that, there's a very loud noise coming from above me kind of thing. And it's really funny, and he's also a character who, not only is he a very efficient detective, and he's very good with investigation analysis and, deduction as well, but he's also very good at exploring spirituality. Like, he's a very spiritual person as well. So to have someone who's spiritually attuned, but then at the same time very much keen on investigation, it really goes to show that he's a very unique blend, because you need to have someone with the type of show that this eventually becomes. You need to have someone who's more, spiritually attuned to the world outside. And there are other characters who are spiritually attuned to the world of Twin Peaks, like the deputy sheriff Hawk, or the log lady, a character who literally is like an elderly woman who talks to a log, and her log gives her information, very cryptic information. You get characters like that, but Agent Dale Cooper kind of grounds it all. I think him and Sheriff Harry Truman really kind of ground the entire show in this very breakneck, but almost, very kind of fast-paced detective story. And it's very well done. It's very funny. And what I like about David Lynch's films overall, David Lynch's entire filmography, there's a lot of heart to them. And I really do like the fact that David Lynch, even though he could be seen as a very dark filmmaker that explores the darkness of humanity, a lot of his films are about the duality of the self, that we're not all completely good or not all completely evil. We all have the tendency to have darkness and light within us all. There's no, we're entirely good or entirely evil. We're always a bit of both. And that's what I really like about a lot of David Lynch's stories. And a lot of, even the most idyllic places in the world have darkness and have secrets. Within every single quaint neighbourhood, there's always a dead body. Within every single, frozen lake, within every single kind of idyllic lake, there's always kind of like a darkness of, waste and, parasites sort of lingering beneath the surface, picking at the earth and ready to eat it whole. But what's really wonderful is that I think David Lynch understands the complexity of human nature more than anybody else does. Because Agent Dale Cooper, when we get to season 2 and the killer is finally revealed, there is an entire portion of the runtime, spoiler alert by the way for the entire show, but there is an entire time where Agent Dale Cooper doesn't have a mystery to keep him interested in Twin Peaks, but he gets introduced to a old nemesis while he's at Twin Peaks in season 2, halfway through season 2, and his name's Wyndham Earl, and he used to be an old partner of his. He used to be an old FBI partner of his, but he eventually went mad and went haywire when he became obsessed with the mystery of the Black Lodge, which is an entire backstory of the town Twin Peaks. And he effectively went mad, and he decided to go supervillain evil. And he went mad because Agent Dale Cooper was having an affair with Wyndham Earl's wife. And this, understandably, made him very angry and made him go insane, and he killed his wife, and Agent Dale Cooper is kind of left with a little bit of a survivor's guilt complex about him, where he feels like he's failed the woman who he loved, and he failed also his best friend and his partner. So he feels like he's got a lot of, he's got a lot to carry as well. And it gave him a little bit more depth, and it really goes to show that the world of Twin Peaks wasn't just random, and it wasn't just reliant on cliches. It really understood its world, and it really understood what kind of a story it wanted to tell. Because when we get into the backstory of the mythology of Twin Peaks, we find out that there is a place called the Black Lodge, which is a place where all spirits go, and it's where evil often resides. And if you enter the Black Lodge with imperfect courage, it will annihilate your soul. And there is a phrase that's very familiar in the world of Twin Peaks called the owls are not what they seem, meaning that the owls that are within the forest have a way of lighting the way to these spirit worlds. And there's even a place called the Owl Cave, where a particular item called the Owl Cave Ring was created, which is kind of like a doorway in which humans can cross over to the world of the spirits and the world of the living, and the sort of like the threshold between the world of the spirits and the world of the the world of the flesh, the world of humanity, can somewhat interject. And it's very fascinating. I won't go into detail about it now, but it is very interesting, and it really does kind of bring full circle stuff that happens later on in the show, which is when, spoiler alert by the way for the entirety of Twin Peaks, and of course the revelation of who actually killed Laura Palmer. So through a lot of investigating, Agent Dale Cooper discovers that Laura Palmer had a secret life. She wasn't a perfect grade A student. She had issues outside of being, the perfect grade A student, Miss Twin Peaks, homecoming queen, and all the rest. And she mostly went out drinking, and she went out to, bars and got hooked up with all sorts of different men for money. But she also was someone who was heavily into drugs. And it's revealed that she had a secret diary where she had a secret life all imprinted within its pages. And one of the details in the secret diary is that she had a secret liaison with the person who might have been her killer. So she knew who her killer was from the very first day in which she met him. And it's very interesting because it turns out that her killer was in fact someone who didn't just torment her in her teen years, but it's gone all the way back since she was a child. And it turns out that the person who murdered her, spoiler alert by the way, was in fact her father, Leland Palmer, played by the wonderful Ray Wise. And when this is revealed, you immediately look at Ray Wise's character of Leland in a completely different light. You no longer see him as the grieving father, you see him now as a secret villain. Because it turns out that Leland Palmer wasn't just acting alone when he murdered his daughter. He was also under the influence of an evil spirit named Bob. And Bob is essentially the evil in which all men's hearts, which resides in all the men's hearts, where he's sort of the devil of the Twin Peaks universe, where he's the guy who, if there's a good in the world, he will always try to counteract that. And that's important. But it also makes sense because later on in the series, when Agent Dale Cooper goes into the Black Lodge and he goes in there to rescue a love interest from Wyndham Earl, he encounters a lot of doppelgangers, including Laura Palmer's doppelganger, and he also encounters Leland Palmer's doppelganger, who says he didn't kill anybody. And if you know what the Black Lodge is, it's the red curtained room. So it's the sort of the room that you see where everyone talks backwards. It's that place. And when he sees these places, when he sees these different versions of these spirits and these people that have passed on, they're always seen as kind of somewhat sinister. Whereas when Agent Del Cooper goes into the Black Lodge, he doesn't think he's going to meet his doppelganger, but then it turns out this doppelganger is evil. And that's actually kind of interesting because it goes to show that Agent Del Cooper isn't entirely good, and it kind of adds levity to the fact that yes, Agent Del Cooper, for as good as he was, he still did something terrible by betraying Windermere. So it goes to show that even the most entirely good person can still have ghosts in his closet or skeletons in his closet, and that I think is very interesting. But this character is so wonderful that when it's revealed, again spoiler alert, that when Agent Del Cooper was running out of the Black Lodge, trying to get out, trying to get away, trying to survive, and there's all that flashing lights, and you see Bob sort of like hovering over the lens, smiling, it turns out that he didn't make it out of the lodge, and that he's still in there, and that, you know, the person that actually got rescued was in fact Agent Del Cooper's doppelganger. And there's that wonderful scene where he sort of like goes to go brush his teeth, and he's sort of like squeezing the toothpaste round the rim of the sink, and he's just sort of like rubbing his fingers and his hands into it, and he just sort of goes up to the mirror, and he just sort of rams his head into it, and you sort of hear the crack, and then he turns and he goes, "How's Annie? How's Annie?" And he just sort of starts laughing. And then, of course, it's revealed that wonderful comedy gag of, directed by David Lynch, it really does kind of make you think, oh, Agent Del Cooper's possessed. But no, he isn't possessed. He is essentially in the Black Lodge, but his doppelganger has come out to essentially cause havoc. And that's effectively what it is. And that's where the third series, Twin Peaks: The Return, picks up. And it picks up 25 years later. And how that all comes together is Laura Palmer's doppelganger says to Agent Del Cooper, "I'll see you again in 25 years. Meanwhile," and that's how the mystery of the third season gets sort of wrapped up. And it's very well done. It's very well done. I love David Lynch for how meticulous he can be. But a lot of people could say, oh, he's very meticulous. He's very much, an attention to detail kind of guy. But like an artist, it's usually just dependent on spontaneity. Sometimes the best images can come through by accident. Now, sometimes it can work, but I feel like what David Lynch does very well is he's very good at just sort of swimming his way through an idea and just really kind of picking out little bits here and there. And he doesn't know what's relevant or not, but he does know that this will make sense in time. And he was just a really wonderful filmmaker, and I really am sad that, I really am sad that he's no longer with us. I'm sad that he's no longer going to be making films. But I just wish more people saw his work, and I wish more people loved his work, because he's one of those filmmakers who will always have a trace of inspiration to me. He'll always be, one of those filmmakers who has inspired me to kind of say, well, look, you don't have to follow conventions. You don't have to, play by the rules of other filmmakers. You can often make up your own rules. You can make up your own, stories, your own worlds, your own characters, and you don't have to follow different archetypes. You can make up a story about anything, and it can be anything you want, and you can really just kind of play by the rules. You can make it as insane and as quirky as you want it to be. And what I really liked about the world of David Lynch is he really just goes to he just really kind of understood what the world was like, and he understood. And I think a lot of his films were not only just a way of understanding himself, but it was a way of understanding the world that he lived in. And I think that's just something that's very interesting, is that in David Lynch's world, everything is both wonderful and strange. And I think that's something that's really kind of wonderful. And I just feel very sad that he's no longer going to be making films ever again, and he'll no longer be, telling good stories, or we'll never get a Twin Peaks season 4. We'll never get that. We'll never get that closure. But we don't need closure, because we technically got it in season 3, but part of me feels like we will never get those stories again. We'll never get to see those characters again, and we'll never get to, see Carl McLachlan or any of these other great actors collaborate with him anymore, because he's no longer with us. And it is just really sad. But what really gave me joy whenever I saw a David Lynch film was that I experienced a roller coaster of emotions. And you can laugh at a David Lynch film, you can cry at a David Lynch film, you can be absolutely shitting your pants terrified of a scene in any of his films or any of his stories, or even in Twin Peaks. There are a lot of scenes that will make you laugh, make you cry, but then you'll also be terrified at the same time and left on this very kind of, dark note. But he's a really beautiful filmmaker, and he works on a spectrum. He never makes just one genre whenever he makes a film. He doesn't just make a crime drama or a buddy cop movie or anything like that. He'll always make a film that always is attuned to what he's fascinated with. Like, say, for example, when he made Eraserhead, he was always the sort of filmmaker that would basically make a film about, fatherhood. That's what Eraserhead is. It's a film about fatherhood, a guy who's not ready for parenthood, and he doesn't know how to deal with it. That's what the whole entire film is, in a nutshell. There's all this surreal imagery, but in reality, that's just David Lynch being David Lynch, and that's what I just really love about it. And I just feel really sad that he's one of those filmmakers that will never get to do that again. And it's just really upsetting, really. And I just hope that with the passing of David Lynch, it encourages more people to see his work and to see what kind of a groundbreaking filmmaker he was. Because he did bring a lot of life to a lot of people's lives, and I really do think that's wonderful. And the fact that he could make you smile with just a single line of dialogue, when Agent Dale Cooper says the words, I am the FBI in Twin Peaks Season 3, that moment gave such fans of his work such joy, and such fans of Agent Dale Cooper such joy. But that's the thing he does. He was able to do that so seamlessly, and he was able to create moments that would piss off a lot of other filmmakers and other film watchers and reviewers, like The Critical Drinker, for example, where they'd say, oh yeah, often meanders. But to me, I think that's perfect, because that's his way of telling a story. And sometimes, yes, it may be tangential, but it gives texture and it gives character to the world, and it gives a different personality to the world as well. And I just love the scenes where, characters would just be arguing about random things. And that's the sort of thing that you'll never get in any films now. And I feel like that's the sad thing, is that David Lynch he'll be imitated, and people will try to sort of imitate his style or his tone, but no one can actually be him. No one can actually be David Lynch. Like, even though people could say, oh yeah, I was heavily influenced by David Lynch and Twin Peaks, they never will. They never will replicate it, or they'll never capture the same tone or feel as Twin Peaks, because David Lynch was one of a kind, and he'll be gravely missed by a lot of his fans, by a lot of film lovers in general. I mean, anyone who's a cinephile like myself, or a lover of storytelling, will find this particular passing of this particular director very, very hard, because he was one of those filmmakers who did everything on his own, and he never gave you any bullshit. It always felt like whenever he said something, he was giving you the honest truth about where these things came from. He never tried to be pretentious. He was just a person who was just himself, and you either liked him or you didn't like him. And I found that very, inspiring, not just as a filmmaker or as a creative, but as a person as well. Like, I literally have a pillow that says, I'm Josh and I'm doing Josh things. This entire pillow actually just sums up me, because I have little weird things, little weird tics. So I feel like David Lynch was a role model more on a personality sense and a creative sense as well. So I feel like he's a role model. And it's sad that he's passed. It really is, because he's one of the greats. And I hope that more people check out his work. And let me know in the comments what you thought of this video. But let me know down in the comments, what's your favourite David Lynch film or David Lynch performance? And let's have a discussion about it. Let's talk about this great filmmaker. I hope you all have a very good day. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more, please subscribe for more. I hope you're all doing very well. This has been Josh of WHIMS. Take care. Bye for now.